The desert stretched out like a sun-scorched canvas, blank and endless, save for the broken skeleton, a mining rig long swallowed by sand. Jacob Thorne stood at the edge of the ruin, the wind tugging at his coat, the grit scratching against his skin. He'd been chasing shadows for years, most of them fading before he could get close. But this was different. The coordinates weren't found in some obscure blog post or conspiracy forum. They were etched into the inside of a military dog tag recovered from a decades-old plane wreck that shouldn't have existed. He glanced behind him. Ava Lynn, geologist and ex-NASA systems analyst, adjusted the straps on her pack and gave him a look equal parts skepticism and curiosity. "You sure this is a place?" she asked. Jacob nodded once, eyes fixed on the gaping maw of the sinkhole just beyond the crumbled machinery. It pulsed with an unnatural warmth, as if the earth itself exhaled heat through the breach. "The seismic readings say it shouldn't even be here," Ava continued, her voice tense. "No fault lines, no gas pockets. It just appeared." "That's what makes it worth the risk," Jacob replied. "You said you wanted real science, not lab politics." She sighed, brushing her dark hair from her face. "I said I wanted the truth." He stepped toward the edge, the sand shifting beneath his boots. "Then follow me." The descent was slow and narrow at first, just enough space for one person to maneuver between jagged walls of rock. Each step deeper dimmed the natural light, and the sounds of the surface world faded into a kind of weighted silence. Their headlamps flickered with the occasional pulse of static interference, a phenomenon Ava chalked up to magnetic anomalies, but which Jacob had seen before. Too many times. 20 meters in, the tunnel widened into a chamber that glistened with strange mineral deposits, crystalline structures that vibrated faintly under the beam of their lights. Ava crouched to examine one. "These aren't native to this region. I've only seen formations like this near impact sites or reactors." Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the far wall, where metallic panels jutted from the rock face, half swallowed by stone but unmistakably artificial. Wires dangled like exposed veins, and a rusted bulkhead door stood crooked on its hinges. Ava froze. "That's not mining equipment." "No," Jacob said, his voice tight. "It's not." He ran his fingers along the edge of the panel. Symbols lined the metal, some in Cyrillic, others unrecognizable. Ava took photos, muttering to herself. "This looks like Cold War era, but parts of it look decades ahead of anything we've ever built." "That's because it is," Jacob said. He touched his earpiece, static crackling. No signal. As expected, they pushed deeper, the corridor beyond the door narrowing into a hallway lined with scorched walls and tangled wires. The air grew warmer, the silence more oppressive. Then, without warning, a door slammed behind them. Both spun, but the path had sealed, stone sliding over metal like a living thing. Ava took a step back. "That wasn't a cave-in." "No," Jacob said again. "It wasn't." His hand went to the pistol at his hip, the gesture not of fear, but of routine. Ava noticed but said nothing. They followed the hall, descending another 20 meters until they reached a chamber that defied explanation. In the center was a sphere, levitating a few inches off the floor, surrounded by a series of concentric rings embedded with glowing sigils. The walls were not stone, but a kind of blackened glass, slick and warm to the touch. Ava's breath caught. "What is this?" "I think it's why they died," Jacob said. "The men from the wreck. This installation. They were trying to hide it, or maybe contain it." "How do you know that?" He looked at her then, his eyes colder than before. "Because my father was on that plane." Silence hung between them, sudden and heavy. Ava's expression shifted. Confusion, sympathy, realization all flickering across her features. "He was a cryptologist," Jacob said. "Disappeared in 1982. They told my family. He died in a training accident. Closed casket. No investigation." "And you think he found this?" she asked, incredulous. "I know he did. His journals led me here. Every one of his classified assignments was tied to seismic anomalies, like this one." Ava turned back to Sphere, drawn now despite herself. "But what is it?" Before Jacob could answer, the sphere began to hum, low and resonant. The ring spun slowly, the air crackling with static. Lights flickered. Ava backed away. "It's reacting to us," she said. "No," Jacob whispered, stepping forward. "To you." The sphere pulsed once. Ava winced, clutching her temples. "Get back!" Jacob shouted, grabbing her arm, pulling her away, but the chamber began to shift. The glass walls melted into something fluid, revealing glimpses of structures, cities, lit by bioluminescence far below. Then a voice echoed, not in sound but in thought. "Do not awaken what sleeps." Both froze. What the hell was that? Ava gasped. Jacob shook his head slowly. Confirmation. A screech rang out from the tunnel behind them, metal grinding against stone, fast and uneven. They weren't alone anymore. Jacob raised his pistol, but Ava grabbed his arm. "We can't fight whatever lives down here. We don't even know where we are." But Jacob was already moving. "We find the access point. If this place has power, it has a map." They sprinted down a new corridor, the walls marked now with more of the strange symbols. Lights flickered ahead, cold blue and flickering red. As they reached another chamber, a control panel lit up on the far wall, responding to their presence. Ava approached it carefully. "Some of this looks like Russian. But the rest? I don't know. Maybe derived from Sanskrit." "Try to access schematics," Jacob said. "We need a way out." Ava's fingers flew across the panel, tapping in sequences as the language adapted, morphing into English before their eyes. "Got something," she muttered. "A transport lift. Deep system. It leads down." Jacob's expression tightened. "Figures." Another screech echoed through the halls. Closer now. Ava glanced toward the sound, then back at the display. "We can't go back the way we came." "No," Jacob agreed. "We go deeper." "You sure about that?" He looked at her. "It's not about being sure. It's about finishing what they started." The lift's door opened with a hiss, revealing a platform and a shaft that disappeared into darkness. They stepped on, the door sealing behind them. The platform jolted, then began to descend. Ava leaned against the wall, catching her breath. "What are we doing, Jacob?" He stared into the dark below. "We're exposing the truth, even if it kills us." The platform picked up speed, light fading until only the hum of the sphere above and the secrets below remained. And still, something followed. "Let me know when you're ready to continue with Section 2. The lift descended with a soft mechanical whir. But beneath the sound, Jacob could hear his own pulse thundering in his ears. Ava stood opposite him, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the readout blinking faintly on the wall. Neither spoke. The chamber around them was dim, shadows clinging to the corners like watchers. It felt as though the walls themselves were closing in, not from movement, but from the pressure of something unseen, something ancient and awake. A sudden jolt rocked the platform. The lights flickered, then steadied. Ava grabbed a railing, glaring at the ceiling. "How deep are we going?" Jacob checked the panel. "Over 2 kilometers already." This shaft wasn't on any maps. "Because it was never meant to be found," Ava said. "And now we're trapped in it." Jacob didn't answer. He knew she was right. But the pull, the instinct that had driven him for years, was stronger than doubt. Whatever was hidden down here had cost lives. His father's among them. Turning back had never been an option. The lift slowed. A hiss of pressure signaled arrival. The door slid open into a corridor bathed in sterile white light, the stark contrast unsettling after the dark descent. The floor was metallic, the walls lined with panels and vents. It was cold, too cold. The air tasted like electricity and decay. Jacob stepped forward cautiously. Ava followed, eyes scanning every detail. "This isn't just a bunker," she murmured. "It's a facility, operational, or at least recently." As if summoned by her words, a low tone echoed through the corridor. A strip of lights flickered to life along the ceiling, guiding them forward. Ava hesitated. That wasn't motion activated. "Something knows we're here." "Then we keep moving," Jacob said. They passed through a series of glass-paneled rooms, labs long abandoned, computers dust-covered but intact. Strange diagrams adorned the walls, energy models, anatomical sketches not quite human, fragments of a language neither of them could translate. One room held a long table strewn with photographs, satellite images, seismic charts, and a grainy black and white picture that made Ava stop in her tracks. She picked it up, fingers trembling. That's Cheyenne Mountain. But this is 2 years after it was supposedly decommissioned. Jacob looked over her shoulder. The photo had scribbled coordinates and the phrase "primary gateway" scrawled along the edge. They were moving something, Ava said, or hiding it. Or both, Jacob murmured. They continued down the hall until they reached a thick, sealed door. A handprint scanner blinked beside it. Its screen cracked but functional. Ava frowned. Even if I could spoof the signal, it'd take hours. Jacob stepped forward without hesitation and pressed his palm to the scanner. To Ava's shock, the door released a sigh. "What the hell?" she began. "My father," Jacob said quietly. "His DNA. They must have used family keys." Beyond the door was a command center, lit by flickering monitors and humming with residual power. The room was circular, consoles arranged like spokes around a central platform. A single chair sat before the largest screen, and in it, the skeletal remains of a man in a tattered uniform. Dog tags hung from his neck. Jacob didn't need to check them. He knelt slowly, picking them up. The name read, Thorne Michael. Ava lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry." Jacob didn't respond. His jaw clenched, the moment sharp and silent. He placed the tags gently into his pocket and turned to the console. The system was old but responsive. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, then settled into a main menu marked Echo Protocol, Level Black. Ava leaned in. "What is this?" Jacob navigated through the files. Echo was a containment directive. My father mentioned it in his last journal. They weren't just researching what was down here, they were afraid of it. He opened a video log. A timestamp from 1982 flashed on the screen. The footage was grainy. Military personnel in hazmat suits surrounding a containment unit. Inside, something moved. It had shape, but not form, a shifting blur of light and density, constantly folding into itself. Then a voice crackled over the speakers. "Containment breach imminent. Repeat containment breach." The feed cut to static. Jacob closed the file. They couldn't destroy it, so they buried it, locked it in a facility no one could reach. "But it's still here," Ava whispered. "And now we've opened the door." The lights dimmed. A deep, rhythmic thrum began beneath their feet, like a heartbeat made of stone. "Something's reactivating," Jacob said. "That lift, it wasn't just bringing us down. It was a trigger." Ava stepped back from the console. "You think this was intentional?" "I think whatever this is, it's been waiting." An alarm flared suddenly, soft at first, then louder, echoing through corridors. A synthesized voice spoke from the walls. "Echo Protocol override. Containment compromised. Initiating lockdown." Doors slammed in the distance. Lights flickered red. Ava ran to the console. "I can't stop it. It's not just sealing us in, it's sealing everything out." A sudden crash reverberated from the corridor behind them. Both turned. A shadow passed the glass walls, too quick to register, but heavy wrong. It wasn't human. Jacob backed toward the emergency exit on the far wall. "We can't stay here. Come on." They sprinted out just as another screen blinked to life, showing the facility's deeper levels. Unmapped, unnumbered. Something down there pulsed in sync with the thrum beneath the floor. Something old. Something alive. They didn't look back. The door slammed shut behind them, the voice repeating its final message. "Do not awaken what sleeps." And yet it was already too late. They ran, breath echoing off the steel-lined halls as the lights above flickered red, casting long, stuttering shadows along the corridor walls. Ava led now, her mind racing faster than her feet, deciphering the partial schematics she'd memorized moments earlier. The facility had layered depths, some connected, some sealed, like concentric rings protecting something buried at the core. Whatever had been locked away was stirring, and it wanted out. Jacob kept pace beside her, gun drawn, jaw clenched. Every sound, a creak, a gust of stale air, sent adrenaline lancing through his chest. It was no longer a hunt for answers. It was survival, a siren wail behind them, growing distant as they turned corner after corner. The floor began to slope downward again, not by stairs but by gradual descent, an intentional funnel. The air thickened, tinged with an acrid scent that clung to the back of their throats. It wasn't rot. It was sterilization. Something had burned here. Not recently, but not long ago either. They stopped at a fork. 2 paths. One plunged into total darkness. The other glowed faintly with a pulsing blue light, rhythmic like a beacon. Ava pointed toward the light. Power still running that way. We follow it. Jacob hesitated. You sure? No, she said. But the dark isn't where we want to be right now. They moved. The passage narrowed, and soon they found themselves walking beside thick cables pulsing faintly under translucent shielding. The walls changed, too, less industrial, more organic, not alive, but designed to mimic life. Arches instead of beams. Smooth, curved surfaces. Etchings that shimmered faintly when touched. This wasn't built by humans, Ava said softly, all creeping into her voice. Jacob didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth lay in the architecture, in the materials too advanced to have come from any known era. They were trespassing in a place older than nations, deeper than secrets. The corridor opened into a large dome-like chamber. At the center stood a column of liquid light, shifting, climbing, folding into itself like a strand of DNA rendered in plasma. Around it, 7 consoles ringed the room, each dormant but intact. Ava approached slowly, eyes wide. It's a command nexus, or a control room. But it's not just technological. It's harmonic. Jacob scanned the perimeter. What does that mean? Systems aren't just powered by electricity. They're reacting to presence, emotion, sound. It's a living interface. He frowned. Then they're aware of us. Ava nodded. Or have been, since we entered. She placed her palm on one of the consoles. The surface shimmered beneath her touch, shifting from alien script to English in seconds. Welcome, it said. The voice was neither mechanical nor human. It existed somewhere in between, calm, impossibly old. Jacob stepped closer. Can you access anything? Ava's hands moved quickly. The interface responded like fluid, every gesture unlocking more. Files, schematics, maps. At the center, a pulsing core labeled simply, the seed. She blinked. This whole place is not a prison. Jacob leaned in. What is it? A vault or a nursery? Before he could ask, the room trembled. The column of light dimmed slightly. Then, from the corridor behind them, the unmistakable sound of movement, a dragging sound. Wet, uneven. Jacob turned, raising his weapon. We're not alone. Ava's voice dropped. I think we triggered a sequence. The seed is connected to the facility's purpose, which is, she hesitated, preservation, of knowledge, of species. It's not just alien, it's ancient Earth, pre-human. Jacob's mind reeled. So what's moving toward us? Something that failed containment. The lights in the chamber flared as if the system had heard her. One of the consoles activated fully, projecting a 3D hologram of a spindly, multi-limbed creature, elegant in form, terrible in design. The species classification blinked underneath. Designate, Sentinel Class Custodian. Status, breached. Jacob exhaled slowly. That's what's out there. Ava studied the display. It wasn't designed to attack. It was designed to maintain order, keep the seed dormant. So why is it hunting us? She looked at him, eyes grim. Because we woke the seed. A crack echoed from the corridor. Jacob stepped in front of her. Can you disable it? Or lock us in? Ava shook her head. I don't know enough yet. But there's something deeper, one more level. It's marked Chamber 0. Jacob grimaced. Because that's never ominous. It's the only place the custodian can't enter. It's coded into its prime directive. He nodded. Then that's where we go. She tapped the sequence. A hidden panel slid open in the floor, revealing a circular hatch. Service tunnel. It bypasses the main corridors. Before they could descend, the chamber door slammed open. The creature stepped into the light, limbs unfolding, eyes gleaming with unfathomable intelligence. It didn't move like an animal. It moved like a machine that remembered being alive. Jacob fired, once, twice. The round struck but dissipated against an invisible field. The custodian tilted its head, almost curious. Ava grabbed his arm and dove into the tunnel. The hatch sealed above them just as the creature lunged. They slid down a smooth shaft, gravity pulling them into darkness. Seconds passed before the descent slowed and spilled them into a quiet, narrow hall. This place was different. No lights, no cables, just stone, black, glossy, warm to the touch. "Is this it?" Jacob asked. Ava nodded. Chamber 0. They stood in silence. Ahead, the tunnel split again, but this time there was no light, no signals, just stillness. Jacob looked back the way they'd come. "We go forward," Ava said. They didn't speak again as they moved into the dark, toward truth even deeper than the one that had already cost them so much. Something waited here, something even the custodian feared, and it had just awakened. The air in Chamber 0 felt heavy, as though the stone itself held breath. Jacob moved cautiously, his steps echoing in the silence, boots brushing the slick obsidian floor. Beside him, Ava studied the walls, smooth and seamless, yet laced with lines that pulsed faintly beneath her fingertips like veins beneath skin. This place was old, far older than the facility above, untouched by the decay of time or technology. It had not been forgotten. It had simply been waiting. They passed beneath an archway carved not with symbols, but impressions, emotions etched into form. Fear, grief, awe. Jacob couldn't name them all, but he felt them. Each step forward was like walking into memory, someone else's history bleeding into his own. The tunnel opened into a chamber both vast and intimate, paradoxical in its scale and silence. At its center hovered a sphere, translucent and shifting, cradled in stone like a heart in a ribcage. Ava approached slowly. "It's not the seed," she whispered. "It's what contains it." Jacob stared. The sphere looked fluid, yet held its form. Light curled inside it, deep blues, sharp silvers, and flickers of red like distant stars dying. "What is it?" "A vault of knowledge," Ava said, voice trembling. "Maybe of consciousness. Maybe something more. Not just alien, not just ancient. Primordial. Pre-conscious. It predates thought." Jacob reached out, then stopped, hand inches from the sphere. "And it's waking up because of us?" "No." Her voice was barely audible. "It's waking up because the custodian failed. We're just witnesses." A low rumble answered her, not from the walls but from within their minds. Not sound. A message. Ava clutched her head, staggering. Jacob caught her. Her eyes were wide, glassy. "I saw it," she whispered. "The earth before anything. Before names. There was no sun, no sky. Just this pulse. It's not a weapon. It's a seed of reality, of form itself, buried here to keep it from maturing." Jacob felt a chill crawl along his spine. "So what happens if it matures?" Ava looked at him, hollow-eyed. "It becomes everything, and we cease to be." A sudden hum vibrated through the floor. The sphere pulsed once, bright enough to cast their shadows in every direction. From the tunnel behind them, the shriek of the custodian rang out like a broken siren. It was trying to reach them, desperate, not to destroy, but to contain. Jacob turned to Ava. "We can't let it open." She nodded. "There's a fail-safe, hidden here. My guess is it was put in place by the same beings who buried the seed. A way to close it off forever. But it's not digital. It's symbiotic." He frowned. "Meaning? Someone has to bond with it. And die." The silence returned like a sudden tide. Jacob didn't speak, didn't blink, but the decision was already forming behind his eyes. "No," Ava said immediately. "Don't even think it." "I have to." "You don't," she snapped. "You're not responsible for this." He stepped toward the sphere, the heat of it pressing against his skin. "My father was. I'm just the echo. Let me end it. She blocked his path. We can find another way. There is no other way. The chamber began to shake, the pulse inside the sphere growing erratic. A thread of black light leaked from it, twisting the air like smoke caught in a windless room. The seed was no longer dormant. It was aware, and it was breaking free. Ava stared at the black light, breath shallow. Maybe it doesn't want destruction. Maybe it's searching for something. Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. And what if it finds it in us? What if it turns everything we know into something unrecognizable? This isn't evolution. It's erasure. She closed her eyes and nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then let me do it. He smiled sadly. You're the one who can carry the truth. If you survive this, you'll make sure it's never forgotten. Before she could stop him, he stepped forward. The sphere expanded, wrapping him in light, his body dissolving not in fire, but in memory. Ava screamed, but no sound came. The chamber fell silent. The light dimmed, the seed withdrew, and the sphere closed. Ava dropped to her knees, the silence now absolute. There were no alarms, no custodian, no hum of machines. Just her, the stone and stillness of sacrifice. Jacob was gone, but so was the threat. Above, somewhere in the higher levels, lights flickered back to life. The systems ceased their warnings. The facility, once pulsing with tension, fell into dormancy. She rose slowly, a numbness in her bones. Around her, the walls began to shift, closing, folding back into themselves. Chamber Zero was sealing shut. She turned and walked away, every step heavy, every breath hollow. But she carried something now, an understanding, not just of what lay beneath the earth, but of what the earth had once been meant to hold. When she reached the surface hours later, the night sky stretched overhead, vast and uncaring. Stars blinked down like eyes too distant to see. But something had changed, and she would be the one to tell the world, even if they didn't believe her, especially if they didn't.